So my wife and I moved to Denver, Colorado about a year and a half ago. And while we were preparing for the move, we decided to watch a bunch of YouTube videos, look up articles, things like that, about kind of the pros and cons of moving to Denver. Now, why didn't we watch these videos before deciding to move to Denver? Well, my wife works for one of the largest hotel companies in the world. And when we decided to leave Alabama, she applied for over 20 properties across the country. And we didn't know which property she was going to accept a job from. So we couldn't watch videos for every single one of those cities. So Denver ended up being the one that she accepted the job at. So we knew about 2 weeks before we had to be out here where we were moving. So that's when we started watching videos. That's when we started trying to look up these articles. Anyway, while we were looking at these videos, there were a couple things that were kind of repeated in every video. And there were certain things that we've learned since moving out here that I wish would have been in some of those videos, and they weren't. So I decided I was gonna make my own video, kind of talking about the things that we've learned that we wish we would have known before moving to Denver. Number one, and I'm gonna start off with a bad one because it is something that you really need to know, Colorado as a whole is number one in the country for car theft. Denver is largely responsible for that. So within the first calendar year of us living up here, my car got stolen 3 separate times and got recovered 3 separate times. So there are certain brands that are easier to steal than others, and I happen to have one of those brands. I did not know that I had one of those brands until it got stolen 3 times in a row. So my wife's car has never been stolen, never been broken into, nothing in the year and a half that we've been here. So I definitely think it's because I had one of those 2 brands that are easy to break into. Because once it got stolen for the 3rd time and finally got totaled, I got a different car brand, and I haven't had any issues whatsoever since getting that other car brand. So I definitely think that it had something to do with those car brands. So number 2 is going to be another bad one, but we'll get to the good ones very soon, I promise. Before moving up here, make sure you research your individual areas. Denver has a massive area. You've got so many different smaller cities like Aurora, Thornton, Westminster, Highlands Ranch, all of these things surrounding Denver that are still part of Denver as a whole. But when we first moved up here, we moved to Aurora, which is not the best place. And that's not something that we knew about. If you go look online, if you go look at their websites, they make it look really, really good. And there are some really, really good, safe areas of Aurora, but they're few and far between. So really make sure that you do your research before moving up here, because that might determine whether or not your car gets stolen 3 times from your apartment complex like mine did. So number 3, there's a place out here for everyone. From somebody that was raised in the southeast of the United States of America, it seemed like everyone down there had a very similar mindset with how they viewed certain things. And no matter who you talk to, they all kind of shared that same mindset. And there wasn't room for others. Out here, there's room for everyone. And I mean everyone out here. You will find people that you have shared ideas with, you find people that you vibe with. There's so many different kinds of people out here. It's not too difficult to make friends. It's very easy to go find a place that you feel like you belong in this city, and that's absolutely great, and we love that about Denver. Number 4, there's always something to do out here. From skiing and snowboarding in the winter to mountain biking and hiking in the summer, there is always an activity, and everybody out here is extremely active. In the summer, you can go sailing in some of the reservoirs. In the winter, you can go ice skating on some of the frozen lakes. There are some cities around here that have frozen lakes that are open to the public to ice skate on, which is amazing to ice skate on a naturally frozen lake like that. And then there's always a place for you to go fly fishing, which some of the creeks and rivers up here are absolutely amazing. I mean, they're National Geographic level beauty up there and pristine. It's so gorgeous being in some of these areas that you can just go to year round. And seeing others do all of this stuff makes you want to do it. So it's really amazing how everybody up here is super active year round, and it just doesn't stop. Number 5, speaking of hiking, Colorado has the most 14ers out of any state in the continental US. While offering some absolutely amazing views and challenging hikes, they need to be taken cautiously. So we went hiking a 14er in September of last year. And as soon as we got there, it starts snowing on us in September. And the last part of this hike, you had to scramble up rocks. Well, the snow was hitting the rocks and melting because the rocks were still warm, but the air temperature was well below freezing, so you had a thin layer of ice in all of these rocks that you're trying to scramble up. Make it all the way up to the summit, and we're in the snow cloud. It's still snowing on us. It was beautiful to see. We couldn't see a ton. We almost had to wait for the clouds to like pass through for us to get the views, but it was absolutely amazing. And it's still snowing on us. We scramble back down the rocks. We get down and we're back in the meadow, and it's just a beautiful day. The sun comes out. It feels like it's 40 degrees. You're walking around. It's absolutely gorgeous. Birds are chirping. You have a slight warm breeze coming through. It was amazing for about 30 minutes.
This is hail. And we had to walk the last like 3/4 of a mile in it, beating us up. I'm not rolling down the window to show you, but man, it's crazy. It's all hail. You can see it on the front of the car.
And then it started to hail on us so much that our ears ended up getting blistered from the hail. Finally make it back to the car, and the hail is going for another 30 minutes. And that was the quickest change in weather that we have ever seen. And it was absolutely insane. Now, my advice for doing something like a 14er, and the thing that we wish we had known, start super early. I mean, you want to be back at your car by noon to 2 p.m. because after that is when the hailstorms and the monsoons start coming in. So the thing that we wished we would have known was start your hike sooner, get back to your car by noon to 2 p.m. and be out of there. Do not get a late start. If you're going to do it, skip the 14er that day, go do a different hike. There's plenty of them around. And hiking a 14er is worth it. The views are incredible, but please proceed with caution. And number 6, altitude sickness really, really sucks. We moved up here from sea level. And when we have people come visit us from our home and they're coming from sea level to up here, typically days 2 and day 3 are really difficult. And then if you move up here, week 2 is difficult. And then month 4 is even more difficult. It's like you've acclimated enough to where you feel comfortable start doing things where you're not getting winded walking upstairs. So you start getting more active and doing more things by month 4, and then it just hits you again, and you're like, I don't even know if I can survive up here. But then after that, you get really used to it, and it gets to the point where when we go do our hikes at 10,000, 11,000, all the way up to 14,000 feet, we don't get winded, we don't get as tired. You do acclimate. It took us about 6 months to completely acclimate. And what I would suggest doing is staying hydrated, getting a humidifier for your house or your apartment or for each individual room, because that really does help with how dry it is up here. But just drink tons and tons and tons of water. You almost don't feel yourself sweating because of the dryness, and that can really make the altitude sickness worse. Also, on the topic of altitude, watch your alcohol intake. 1 drink up here is like 2 or 3 down at sea level. People come up here, they'll have 1 drink, they start feeling a little tipsy and they don't know why. It's because you're at altitude. Just be a little bit careful whenever you are drinking alcohol because it can hit you real fast. Number 7, housing is expensive. It's a major city. Of course, it's going to be expensive. But when we first moved up here, we had a 1-bedroom apartment in Aurora, Colorado that was $1,400 a month. We moved to a 2-bedroom apartment now. That's the one that I'm currently in, and we pay more than that. But that $1,400 apartment up here would have easily gone for like $800 maximum down in Alabama, where we're originally from. So you have a massive increase in housing. But really outside of that, that's it. Like, we haven't noticed anything else that's really more expensive up here. 2 things that are a little bit more expensive, and they both have to do with vehicles, is vehicle registration and insurance, car insurance. Like I said, thefts make your car insurance go up a little higher, but registering your car is more expensive up here. But outside of those 2 and housing, we haven't seen an increase in our monthly payout as far as bills and groceries and things like that go. Now, we are child free, so we don't have certain bills that other people may have moving up here. But all in all, we haven't noticed that big of an increase, except for housing, cars, and car insurance. And that's really it. Finally, number 8, parks and wildlife are everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. Denver has done such a great job of kind of integrating parks and nature and city living together. We have a wildlife refuge a few miles down the road from us where there are 2 herds of bison, mule deer, white-tailed deer, red-tailed hawks, bald eagles, prairie dogs, coyotes, all of this stuff in a wildlife refuge just down the road from us. When my wife goes to work in the morning, the way that she has to watch out for mule deer and white-tailed deer. And we're like 15 minutes from downtown Denver. It's insane. When we go driving into the mountains, we almost always see bison, elk, bighorn sheep, and a myriad of other smaller animals whenever we're going into the mountains. They're everywhere, absolutely everywhere, and it's amazing. We used to have 5 acres of land down in Alabama that was all woods. We never once saw a deer there, and we would occasionally see a rabbit, and that's it. Here, I go downstairs in my apartment complex, and there's rabbits everywhere. It's nature lives here with you, and that's absolutely amazing. I would say it's harder to find an area without a park than find one with a park. You drive past so many anytime that you're just going to the grocery store or go into somebody else's place. You drive past a ton of them, and that's absolutely amazing how they've integrated wildlife and city living into a major city like this. And if you want to know more about these places that have like the deer, the elk, and the bison near downtown Denver, I will be making future videos about those. As a professional photographer and videographer, I'm out in these areas a ton. So I've been kind of awarded an amazing chance to make videos that talk about living and traveling to Denver and kind of the nature areas around it. So I'll have some of those videos coming out later on. So the question is, do we regret moving here? Absolutely not. It is one of the best decisions that we have ever made. Even with the bad things, the good things far outweigh it. And so with that, that's going to be the end of this video. I will have some more videos coming out showing and talking about my favorite things to do in and around Denver, both involving nature and some not involving nature. So I hope that you'll like, I hope that you'll subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.